So the club finally read our strongly worded email that we sent a few weeks back on the back of Frankometer requesting that a managerial change was made. They have made that managerial change. Thomas Frank has been sacked today. Shamelessly, I got a huge dopamine hit as soon as I read the news. And I think that's a clear indication that subconsciously I was at my wit's end of having to deal with Frank Ball for any longer. Really chuffed that the announcement's been made, but also now very, very concerned about what comes next. Mark and Tom, where are you with it?
Oh, you know what? I think the overriding emotion for me is just relief. Like just relief. I was a bit like you. Like this morning, I was in the office and I was feeling really tense and stressed, and it was nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that we were now 5 points from relegation, and as far as I was concerned, if the change didn't get made, we were getting relegated. I couldn't see any other pathway than the worst. And as soon as I heard the announcement at about 10 o'clock this morning, wasn't it? It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It was just amazing to hear.
Yeah, I think I might have been the first one to say out on the Frankometer. And I don't think I'm not sure if I ever flopped back, but I'm
Yeah.
flipping pleased that he's gone. I think he's, something had to change. And okay, let's call out immediately. It's not right at Tottenham at the minute. It's wrong from the top down. It's they should have made the decision sooner. They should have backed him in the window with some reinforcements if they were going to keep him, which they did. They let that drag on, but they didn't do that either. And then they've sacked him today, which is the right decision. But you could tell from the statement that they made, there wasn't any mention about Heitinger looking after the team for the next few weeks or for the next game. There weren't any sort of comment on, and we're going to undertake a process too, or we will be releasing an update imminently about the decision around our head coach. Nothing. Just, Frank was terrible. We're sorry about that. All the best. And that's it. So look,
Yeah.
I'm really pleased he's gone. Something had to change. I said, on the last pod, I think he might have lost the dressing room. I think he definitely lost Romero. And I don't know if this was as much to do with player power as it was to do so obviously with the results and absolutely the performances. So good night to Frank. We didn't hate Frank here on this pod, but we were absolutely sure that he was the wrong fit for us. So we've got to try and look forward now.
Yeah, and what I've loved today is, obviously I've been looking at the news and social media, most of the day to see what sort of plans are coming in next. And I said to you, I think it was about 9:15, wasn't it, that I'd noticed that a lot of the journalists had sort of changed their tact, that they were, they've been, well, what's Frank supposed to do? It's not his fault, blah, blah, blah. And then this morning, the sort of posts were very much, it's become untenable. The players aren't, and it was a turning of the attitude, I think. And then what I've loved throughout the day is all the stuff that's come out. We knew it was a disaster because sources told us that players didn't understand what he was saying. They were sending messages on WhatsApp groups with him dressed in Arsenal pajamas. They were taking the I mean behind his back. Romero after the Arsenal game and a number of others, despite Thomas Frank saying our standards are dropping, turned up late for training the next day. And none of this has obviously come out at all, is it? None of it, it's all been in the background. So most of it is going to be absolute rubbish. But I do love the whole circus around it. I really get into it. It's just like, oh yeah. Everybody's a know-all after the event, aren't they? And all this stuff comes out. But I think before the announcement, I went back to our pods that we did, in the early days, and it's a bit raw, I have to say. But when we were discussing the change and Thomas Frank coming in. And I think we all said at the time that, yes, out of who we were linked with, that was probably the best of the fits. And we were genuinely pleased that he was coming in from what he'd done at Brentford. But I think we also said that this is a much different job. He's going to be under a massive spotlight. And how is he going to deal with the spotlight? And I think, he massively failed at the communication part, and bringing everyone together. And let's face it, he lost the fans probably
weeks ago.
well, I think it was September-ish.
Yeah.
He started being, you obviously don't understand the situation and all this kind of thing. I'm the clever guy here. I'm the leader. I will bring this out. And, it, it's, it, it's been a situation where the toxicity has shifted from leaving, not backing managers in transfer windows to having to watch turgid, awful football. And the first half against Newcastle, it was just pathetic in what he was trying to do.
Yeah, and it's symptomatic of everything that is wrong with the club at the minute. Frank was the wrong choice, playing the wrong football. The players were making the wrong decisions. And you were talking about before about all the stuff leaking out in the press. That's not all going to be true. But there's enough of it there to make you think, that things weren't right. That it's wrong at the top. The leadership is wrong at the top. The medical department feels like it's being run by, I don't know, Fisher Price hospitals. So everything is wrong. And the most frustrating thing of all is when you look sort of up the M6 and see what United have done with Carrick. And I'm not saying that, you change the situation by a few weeks, we bring in Carrick and we get similar results. I'm not saying that. It's a completely different situation. But it's just the mirror being held up against us going, well, this could have been you. You could have made these decisions sooner.
I think you're right in one sense that when he'd lost the fans so clearly and the fans had turned against him, it never, ever ends well. Unless he turned around the results massively, which he clearly didn't. You look at it now and you think, why on earth did they keep him in the hot seat? If they weren't going to bring players in,
it was just an ego thing, wasn't it, from the board? I mean, they stated that they were doing this for the long term, and you can tell from the statement they did not want to do what they've done today, but it became untenable. The fact is, I think they finally got the message that we were getting relegated. I don't think they really, really accepted that before the Newcastle game. And then all of a sudden, of course, West Ham are a Sesko injury time goal away from being 3 points away. Forest are playing as we speak. I'm assuming they will probably beat Wolves, so they will be on the same points as us. Leeds got a point against Chelsea. So, it all became very, very real, very, very quickly. And like we said against the West Ham game, he should have gone after that. And it's just been delaying the inevitable. But I'm glad it's happened. It still is only mid-February. We still do have, I think, 12 games left in the season. It's enough time to turn it around. But as you've said before, the new manager is going to come in and he's still not going to have any players to pick. This is the big concern, is that you're still dealing with the bare bones. And that is where I have just a sliver of sympathy for Frank, is that, since December, he's had no chance. But the fact is that, as we've said, prior to that was awful as well. So it's not like the Ange situation where there was any sort of redeeming quality where he could get away with it. He had no personality. There was no affection from the fans for him. The good times, well, there were no good times. There was nothing to kind of to look at it. And in terms of the plan. I mean, we've been saying it all season, and I still don't know what were the tactics. What were we trying to do? What was Frank ball at Spurs? I have no clue. We've
Yeah.
never ever
Unfortunately,
worked out.
Mark, neither did he.
Well,
So
I
Well,
mean,
the players clearly didn't,
yeah,
and again, this has been suggested that the players didn't understand what the system of promote. There's been a quote in the Athletic that a source close to one of the players said that they were feeling like they were being asked to only perform about 10% of their level because of the restrictions placed on them.
mm,
And again, that could just be a conjecture, can't it? But you can see it. We're not football experts. We're not FIFA pro coaches, but you can see what's in front of your eyes. We say, why can't we pass the ball 5 yards?
yeah,
Well, these players you put these players in a different team and they'll be able to pass the ball 5 yards. There's something wrong with the structure and the way that they are being asked to approach the game that's causing them to make constant mistakes over and over and over again.
yeah.
And
It will be fascinating, won't it? Like whoever comes in, it will be fascinating to see what changes. I mean, what are your thoughts about? There's obviously a few names in the mix. It seems to me that we're going to go for an interim measure. We spoke about the other day. It surely Poch has to come in the summer.
yeah, and as we said, that isn't on the basis that we all agree or think that it's the best idea. We just think it's the only way that the ownership can go
Yeah,
to bring the club together.
yeah,
And as we say, it's a PR exercise. It might all end in flames, but it goes back to when ENIC took over. They got rid of George Graham, who was very divisive because of his ex-Arsenal connections, and they
yeah,
brought in Glenn Hoddle.
yeah.
It's exactly the same, isn't it? Everybody gets behind it because they are Spurs through and through. And whatever you say about Pochettino tactically or whatever, he absolutely lives and breathes the club.
Yeah.
And that's
He,
what we
he he
need.
knows what the end goal is, and unfortunately for him, I think he's going to be even further away from that than he was when he started the first
Yeah,
time, and he was quite away. He was,
yeah,
completely, because you could swap out every player in that Poch team man for man for the team we've got right now, quality wise.
yes, we're starting from a lower foundation, but actually, when you look at what we have got in terms of youth, we've got an exciting core bunch of players there that that you can get hold of and start working with. And again, I remember when Poch did come in, one of the first things you noticed was the fitness levels. Like he ran them ragged in that pre-season, didn't he? And our fitness levels were so much superior than what they were previously. And I think that will happen again.
I think that will happen no matter who comes in.
I've got a slight reservation about Poch. I have to say, I've you know it just feels a little bit like we're waiting for the second coming, and actually, it's kind of the same as the issue around the transfer window. I don't want to wait and only bring in the best at the right time. Can we please fix this now? And you think about some of the interims that are being mentioned because we want to wait for Poch, and none of them fill me with any sort of confidence. We're still in a right pickle here, boys. And what
We need four wins, don't we? We need four wins out of the last 12 games. That
sure.
gives us 12
So
points, and that will keep us safe.
it seems like there's the two options. There's get an interim or get in a manager now. I've seen some names flying around. De Zerbi, I didn't realise he'd lost his job at Marseille.
Well, literally yesterday,
just in the
wasn't
last
it? It was yesterday.
So all of a sudden, there's a Premier League manager, with a reputation for playing attacking, good football. Apparently, he can be quite spiky.
With it, yeah, I think he'd be a disaster. I mean, he's basically left Brighton after doing a Conte didn't he? He basically just threw the club under the bus. Went to Marseille. Now Marseille, are a strange club.
I was going to say they're fractious at best, aren't they?
Yeah, and they'll employ anybody. I mean, they don't seem to have any sort of worries about how they look and who they bring in. So, and
who, Graham? Who?
Because
right now,
Well, this
who?
is my this is my point. This is why I'm, was my immediate reaction was I was very pleased when I saw the news. I thought, yes, finally, the doom can be lifted. But then the cloud descended again because, well, actually, like we've said, well, what's the point? Because who are you going to bring in? The guys that are going to be sought after are going to know that there's going to be a lot of choice in the summer. And they're also not going to be silly enough to look at Spurs and go, do you know what? Well, I could really do something with that at the moment. They're going to need an awful lot of reassurance that they're going to be really heavily backed. And you get us through this, but there's no proof that will happen because it's never happened before. So, somebody like Alonso, who has proved that he can develop a team that is less fashionable, but in a way that's, exciting, like he did in Germany. He seems a decent fit to me, but he's not going to be overly keen to see if he can get Spurs out of a relegation battle.
But do you think it needs a tactical genius? I just think it needs someone that's going to go in there,
yeah,
and just give them a bit of confidence, give them a bit of freedom. Because, like we've said, player for player, we've got quality in that team. It's just the confidence is shot. The tactics have been awful, and it's just been a complete disaster under Frank. So to me, it doesn't need a tactical genius to get us out of trouble. Like you've just said, 12 points, even 9 points will probably do the job. And we've got fixtures that should be winnable in a normal sense of the word. Now, I know under Frank, I wouldn't have been confident in winning those at all, but you just need a cheerleader in there.
Yeah, and look, it'd be massively hypocritical of me to sit here and say, oh no, it's all doom and gloom now, because I wanted Frank out. And I think the most important thing we could do now is change. We needed to change something. And the only option is
it's a different voice. It's a different voice.
Exactly. It's just that when you look at the available options, you're going, well, I know some people are talking about Ryan Mason. I'm sorry. I know he's an ex-Spurs guy, but I'm not feeling it. He didn't have a great time at West Brom. There's obviously Harry Redknapp's name has been mentioned. I think, Graham, you first brought him up
by Harry Redknapp.
yeah. So this is why Sky has become almost irrelevant now, isn't it? It's Sky Sports, because basically, obviously, Harry Redknapp is invited onto their show. Tim Sherwood is does a lot of work with Sky, doesn't he? So Tim Sherwood's basically spouted out that he'd be honoured to go back and help in the interim, with no basis of why that would be a good fit at all. And Harry Redknapp's 80-ish. I don't know exactly how old he is, but his last managerial job was getting the 1990 England World Cup team back together for a Sunday League game, wasn't it? So it was a veterans game, wasn't it? Or something, it was on a thing he did on ITV. Now, again, a voice in the dressing room, absolutely, but at the same time, I do think you need somebody that has the current coaching credentials that will give the whole place a bit of a lift. And I'm interested to know what you guys think. Do you feel it's realistic and would be the preference to bring somebody in now on a permanent basis, or are we left with interim options, which obviously cuts down that market significantly, because there's only going to be a few people that will be happy coming in an interim knowing that it is a short-term contract? And Sam Allardyce might be one of them, but no.
So what are we thinking about Heitinga? Obviously he's got managerial experience. with Ajax, I believe it was. He's just recently come in, so he's not massively tarred or associated with the Frank regime, and he's already there. There's that familiarity that he already has. I've no idea what he's like as a manager or what his kind of thought
Well, his
processes are
one
in terms of
managerial
tactics.
appointment was Ajax, but they were an absolute mess, but he did fail. But his playing career and his assistant manager sort of career has been, successful with big teams, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's obviously had some experience, and I do go back to it that it, as you say, Mark, it's 3 or 4 wins. We're not looking at him to get us into the Champions League. We're probably, I don't know about you guys, but the Champions League for me is pointless now. We're not going to be anywhere near it. We might as well just play the kids in the
Well,
round of 16, because what's the point?
It's one of those things where, again, like if we were still in the FA Cup or the League Cup or whatever, it's a different focus. It takes away that kind of pressure of the league. It can be used to, bolster some confidence, and that's the other kind of crazy thing, isn't it, about what we've been doing in the Champions League, is that we've been getting good results, and it hasn't translated into any sort of momentum in the league whatsoever. Like, that's the crazy thing. But yeah, I don't know. I would certainly prefer an interim, only because I really want Poch in the summer. That's my only kind of logic behind it.
Let me paint you a scenario here, because I know what you're saying, and all being well, that would be the perfect scenario. But, in a parallel universe, and unfortunately we might be in that one, the interim comes in, and then everybody is saying what we're saying now. Poch is going to come in the summer. Late summer, by the way. He might not even be there to cover the transfer window, right? But also, what if America or the USA, or however they like to be termed, have an absolutely dreadful World Cup?
Good. He'll be back. He'll be back early. Perfect. I hope they go out in the first round. It makes no difference what they do. It's irrelevant.
For me, I am, I'm kind of tired of the circus, and if the interim's there, all he's going to be doing is saying, are you keeping the seat warm for Poch? Are you keeping the seat warm for Poch? And then Poch, does a terrible job in the World Cup. And you might be right. Oh, great. That means he comes to us sooner. But that means he's failed. He's failed there. He failed at Chelsea. You're trying to.
My view of this is quite interesting, I think, because my view of the Poch coming back is because of his, love for the club. You can tell that he wants to come back. He's been pimping himself out on every podcast for about the last 5 years, saying he wants, and hinting that he'd like to come back.
Not hinting.
And yeah, he's basically got a sign out, hasn't he? And I think there's been a bit of a revision in terms of his time there. For the most part, it was very, very successful, and the best time of being a Spurs fan since the 80s. And I don't think you can get away from that. But my view is that it's the only decision that ENIC will make, mainly because they're not the brightest. I don't think they're particularly good at making decisions, but it's an easy win. 80% of the fan base will embrace it with open arms, and it will give them a bit of breathing space. Mark, I get the impression,
and that's all they need,
right? But I'm getting the impression from what you're saying is that you see him as a good appointment from we could actually do something under Poch. You think he is the best fit coach-wise?
This whole best fit thing to me is nonsense. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we've gone through Conte and Mourinho, we've done Ange. Like, what is best fit? I don't think you can say that someone is a good or a bad fit. It's if he wins games, he's a good fit. If he loses games, he's a bad fit.
All right. Without the history of Poch at Spurs, do you think he would be a good appointment? Do you think he would?
100%. He plays because of everything you've just said. He loves the club. He knows the club. He knows what the fans demand. I don't think he would be able to kind of recreate what he did the first time round, and I'm sure it would eventually end up going wrong because that's just, there's no way he can recreate that team that he had before. But right now, it's what we need. It's that shot in the arm that we need. He will come here. He will play possession-based football. He will play exciting football. He will look to develop youth. One of the biggest things he did when he first joined is that he improved individuals. There were so many players that were at the club that we thought were useless. Poch comes along, and all of a sudden they go up a couple of levels.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, but you need to check your calendar because you just said right now this is what we need. Right now we ain't getting Poch. Right now
No,
we need this situation sorting. And look, I won't get away from being pleased that this decision has been made, but I don't have faith in this board, and in them making the right decisions for us. And so I've still got a fair amount of trepidation about the next decision that they make. And just that's the idea of bringing in an interim to wait for Poch rather than trying to find the best person available to fix this problem now. But they didn't do it with the January transfer window, and they didn't sack him sooner. That's where I want the focus of the club to be. And if they're saying, well, we'll do this because it's a good PR exercise for us at the start of the season, the start of the season we're in the Championship, we're screwed.
Okay, so where are you going with your hopes then? Obviously we don't know anything, but for the people that are available at the moment, who do you think could come in and galvanise the fans? Because the fans need galvanising as well. Because when you're in a relegation fight, if you look at the beginning of the Forest match tonight, you look at the West Ham game yesterday, the stadium is absolutely rocking and behind the team. Spurs stadium was half empty last night, and I do wonder whether that, helped with the trigger, because the realization that the pints aren't flowing,
yeah.
is as much as anything. But who do you think, would come in now, is available now, that could, turn this around and take us forward next season as well?
For me, as I say, Poch in the summer. As an interim, like I say, I think it could be anyone. For me, you just need a cheerleader. You just need a cheerleader.
You're happy with the interim, and then
100%.
the Poch thing about that. So Tom, you're a now and for the future. So who are you pinning your flag to?
Well, I don't think we're going to get a big time manager to come in and save us for 6 months. Then they're just not going to do it.
No. But you're saying appoint someone now, but permanently. So you can't get Poch. So you bring in someone now, and you say to them, "No, here's a 3-year contract."
I'm a realist in the sense that I think the club will probably just go with Heitinger because he's in place. But I think if they felt that De Zerbi was up for it and they could get him on good terms, I wouldn't be disappointed if that's the way we went. But if they're doing it, they'd have to do it quickly. So they'd have to do it probably before the Arsenal game. They'd have to do it, in the next few days. Otherwise, you let this drag on, you may as well sort of stick with the status quo.
Yeah, and I was sort of amazed because there was a suggestion that the club want to make an appointment by Monday, and I'm thinking, but you get someone in now, and you basically got a pre-season, with World Cups and international tournaments and things like that. Pre-seasons now with a full squad.
That's the point, though, isn't it? That is the absolute point. And I think when the news came out, we were pinging a couple of messages to each other, and the one thing we said was, "Yeah, lovely statement, but this doesn't feel planned."
Yeah.
Talking about De Zerbi, do you know when Brighton used to change manager, and within a couple of weeks they'd have the new guy in, and he'd be absolutely nailed on to be the right sort of guy for Brighton. That's how you manage a football club. You look at the landscape. They should have been thinking about this, before the West Ham game. They should have
Oh yeah,
had all these
it's
options lined up, all the contingencies. But again, we're in a situation where a decisions have been made. But it doesn't feel like there's a plan.
But there will be. Like, come on. I know we have no faith in them, but there is
I'm
not a
going to quote
chance.
Ian from the
No,
Tottenham
no, no,
Hotspur podcast.
no,
You're underestimating the incompetence of Tottenham.
no. I'm sorry. There is not a chance that we have been through this season, and there has not been any sort of planning, succession planning going on. No, I refuse to believe that. But yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. But it's something needs to be sorted quickly. It's the ideal time. Obviously, we've got 10 days before the North London derby, so it's perfect timing, and maybe that's also contributed to the decision. We've got a break in games.
It is the perfect time to bin Lange off as well. There's no transfer window. All the youth players are already out on loan. You can't do it. He can't. What is his role at the moment? But he is as much fault as anyone else, because it has been made clear that he's been involved in player recruitment and managerial recruitment. That's been a massive failure over the last 3 years. How he's still got a job, I don't understand.
So you can't bin him off because he's appointing our next manager.
Well, he shouldn't be. Well, this is it, isn't it? He shouldn't be anywhere near it. You cannot have that many failures, and and has he gone back to the same 30-point spreadsheet?
Because but has he failed? I don't know. He's not failed. He's brought in loads of good players for us. It didn't work for Thomas Frank.
He's brought in, but he's brought in lots of young players with potential. He doesn't seem capable of bringing in solutions that we need. Again, Thomas Frank was a long-term appointment, but there's no thought around anything apart from the 3 years time. There's got to be a thought process around whoever comes in now needs to get that stadium rocking just by being really good in his first few press conferences. And what you want is an Ange level press conference before the North London derby. That is, you need that level of.
That's what I'm saying. You just need a cheerleader in there. That's all you need. You don't need Pep. You don't need a tactical genius. Get a cheerleader in there. Get their confidence up. Get them playing. And we have the quality on the pitch. Even with this threadbare squad, we have quality. It's not rocket science. That's why, to me, the interim manager, like there's loads of people you could choose that could do that for us. I don't see it being a massive deal who they bring in as an interim. It just needed to not be Frank. It just needed to be a different voice and just get us to the summer in the Premier League.
It couldn't be Ange, could it?
I mean, I'd love it. I would love it.
So the rest is football podcast with Gary Neville, Ian Wright, Roy Keane, and Jill Scott. I've put out a clip today that they were obviously planning to record with Ange, presumably today or yesterday, for a pod to go out next week. But basically, he was in the green room waiting for his slot, and they've pulled him in early so they can get the pod out tomorrow, basically. And it could be hot air and nothing, couldn't it? But it could be absolute gold what he's going to come out with tomorrow, because hopefully his emotions are really up, because he's probably looking at it going, yeah,
told you so.
Yeah,
Look, what did he say? He said season 3 is always better than season 2. Well, you know what? Spin-offs are good as well. So
and the sound bites. He's brilliant at sound bites. So it's going to be a proper good listen. I have to say, it's not a pod that I follow very closely, but and I don't want to put an advert out for another one, but you know, I think it's definitely going to be something I'm going to be dipping into tomorrow, just to see if he's puts his hat in the ring like Tim Sherwood has today, and Harry Redknapp has.
Look, this is at the end of the day what we all wanted. You know, we wanted this change.
I feel much happier right now.
Yeah. So and we needed something to happen. So let's just cross our fingers that now the club has got into a bit of a habit of making decisions, they can start making some better ones. Yeah, let's see where we are come this time next week.
Yeah, the only way is up. The only way is up. We have a bit of hope now, at least.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Let's do this.
Come on, you Spurs.